My name is Ellie Johnson, and this is my digital positionality media project. What this presentation will cover is my identity, intersectionality, my race, my nationality, and my education. First, we're going to start with my identity. So here I listed a few things that I thought of at the top of my head when I was thinking about my identity, like I am. So I talked about I'm a redhead, I have blue eyes, I'm loving, I'm compassionate, and I'm goofy. And here I just have a picture of me, a picture with my family, and my dogs that I talk about. I'm a 22-year-old white female. I grew up in Maineville, Ohio. I've lived in the same place my whole life. I have 3 older brothers and 3 sister-in-laws. I am the baby of the family and I'm the only girl. I also have 2 dogs named Scout and Copper. I grew up going to a nice school district and I was middle class. I was very blessed to grow up with very good parents and very kind brothers. It has taken me a long time to understand my identity, and I think I'm still working on this. I had never really thought about my identity in society until college when I took EDL 204. This class was very eye-opening for me and really showed me how everything I experienced is going to shape my future teaching. In my school reflection paper for EDL 204, I talked about how what my schooling was like and a lot of things that I wanted to change for my future students. This assignment helped me do a lot of reflection on my schooling experience, and that was the first time I had really done that. I have continued to reflect and understand my positionality through my time at Miami. Thinking about my multiple identities, I have to think about the past, present, and future. As stated in Tatum's The Complexity of Identity, integrating one's past, present, and future into a cohesive, unified sense of self is a complex task that begins in adolescence and continues for a lifetime. Reading this piece helped me understand that understanding your identity is challenging and your identities will continue to change and grow throughout your lifetime. In the book Teacher Leadership for Social Justice, the reading Power, Penalty, and Critical Praxis defines intersectionality as intersectionality describes how the co-relational forces of oppressions like racism, sexism, and classism interlocked, integrate, and intersect simultaneously within the lives of individuals. These are the components of my intersectionality. I am a female, I am white, I am heterosexual, I am a U.S. citizen, I am able, and I am middle class. I'm going to focus on a couple components that will affect how I am as a teacher. For my race, I identify as a white individual. Throughout my time at Miami, I've learned what race means and how I am very privileged. It took me a long time to open my eyes and realize this. I've been educated about how people are affected by the color of their skin and how they're discriminated against just because of the color of their skin. Miami has opened my eyes to all the different races and cultures around me. Being white is going to affect my future students because there will be lots of children of different races in my classroom, and I will not know what it is like to be in some of their shoes. All I can do is be the best I can be and be an ally for them and fight for them, but I will never understand what it is like to be them. As a teacher, I want to teach my students to be proud of who they are and fight for themselves and people around them. Both teachers and students will have empowerment and agency in my classroom. In the Tatum's reading, he talks about domination and subordination. And this quote stuck out to me. The truth is that the dominants do not really know what the experience of subordinates is. So I will never really know what it is like to have a different colored skin, but I can try and help my students through that. For my nationality and language, I am a U.S. citizen and I was born in the U.S. and I have lived here my whole life. In my future classroom, I might have students that have moved from a different country and they are trying to adjust to the U.S. I will never understand what it feels like to experience a big change like that. I'm English speaking and I am in a country where lots of people speak my language. I do not have to worry much about going somewhere that there is no one speaking my language. This is something that one of my future students will experience. They will be going to a school with a bunch of new people that do not speak their language. As a teacher, I want these kids to know that I am there to support them and I am there to help them through this big transition in their life. I also do not understand what it is like to live in a country that I was not born in. This is something my future students might be experiencing as well. As an educator, I want to make sure I'm there to help these students, and I will work hard to understand how I can help the students best in the classroom. In my future classroom, my teaching and learning will honor my students' full humanity. A quote from Love that shows what kind of teacher I want to be is, "To love all children, we must struggle together to create the schools we are taught to believe are impossible. Schools built on justice, love, joy, and anti-racism." For the education slide, I'm going to talk about my time at Miami University. Being a student at Miami University has really shaped me into the person I am today. My time at Miami has really opened my eyes to multiple identities and how these affect my life. Miami has also taught me a lot about all the different people around me. I've learned the importance of knowing your students and where they come from. I've also had a lot of time to reflect on my bias and how I can observe these and be the best teacher I can be for my students. As said in the teacher leadership book, teacher reflection is at the core of what makes an outstanding teacher leader, one who constantly and critically examines the assumptions he or she has and the actions he or she takes based on those assumptions, as well as the impact of those actions on others, especially learners. That was on page 25. Miami has been such an eye-opening experience for me because it has taught me so much about social justice and how to have culturally relevant teaching. Miami has taught me to be aware of what my students of color experience and will experience as they grow up. I've learned how important it is for teachers to understand what their students go through in this society and where they come from. These things cannot be ignored. As said in the teacher leadership for social justice book, teachers who disregard the impact of racism on Black children's schooling experiences, resources, communities, and parents' interactions will do harm to children of color. That was on page 54. At Miami, I've learned that curriculum is more than standards, textbooks, or courses of study. On this side, I'm going to talk about teachers that have impacted me in my K-12 experience and some college professors. I've had a lot of teachers and professors that have impacted me through my years in school. I've noticed that ones that have impacted me the most are the teachers and professors that seem to genuinely care about their students. I think being a teacher is a very powerful job, and you can have a huge impact on your students in a good and bad ways. I have had lots of teachers that have shown me the teacher I don't want to be also. I think the teachers that really showed me that they cared were the ones that showed that they wanted to get to know me and they wanted to fight for what I also believed in and basically just have your back. And they really valued education and what that really meant. It was more actually learning and not just notes and taking tests and quizzes. Reflecting on my positionality helps me to become a better educator because it helps me understand myself more. Reflecting is a huge part of learning about yourself and your bias and how you can overcome these bias. You can't overcome bias if you don't even understand what they are. As an educator, I want my students to feel valued and loved in the classroom. I want them to know that they matter and that I'm going to fight for them. I also want them to know even though I might not understand the positions they are in, I will do anything I can do to help them and support them through their challenges and successes. In the book Teacher Leadership in Chapter 3, a quote that stood out to me is, "As a teacher, it is my job to make everyone in my school feel accepted, loved, and heard. Listening more than I speak is something I value deeply. I can learn just as much from students than they can learn from me." And that's on page 47. And this connects to one of our threshold concepts, teaching is co-constructed. My classroom will be centered around this idea. My students will also have a voice in my classroom. I want them to have the power to control their own education and learning. This is something that was lacking in my education, and I feel like I missed out on a lot of good education because everything we learned was mundane. And this is my reference page that puts all the references for all the quotes I read throughout the presentation. Thank you for listening.